Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, and broadcaster. I also happen to be a lifelong fan of the man they call the King of Pop. He was once called Elvis Presley. And so, not surprisingly, in 1994, when I did an interview with Nick Cave, who seemed to have quite a Presley fixation of his own, we chatted about the man. Actually, what you're about to hear is part of a series of podcasts I will be uploading based on that 1994 interview with Nick. But I decided to give this a podcast of its own, purely because it may be of interest to fellow Elvis fans as well as fans of Nick Cave. By the way, if you want to read the article I wrote based on this chat, or gain access to the full tapes for personal or professional use, check out and contact me at my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.
What about Elvis?
No, he's a god.
I knew I could puncture that one. That's that proceeding. How did you feel?
Having said all that,
yeah, that's right. No, but come on, because I did read Marcus's comment about Firstborn. You saw that in his Dead Elvis book?
sorry?
Did you read his analysis of your album Firstborn in Greil Marcus's book Dead Elvis?
No.
Did you not read that?
Or is that the thing about Tupelo?
Yes.
Yeah, I have read that.
But about not just about the song, about the album. Like he says that. Well, I thought maybe he thinks Long Train Suffering is like the answer to Mystery Train. You know, he'd hear Mystery Train anywhere. Are there elements of that there? Do I detect rhythms of? No?
Of elements of what?
Mystery
Sorry.
Train in your song.
What's it called again, that song?
Your song?
Yeah, my song.
Train Long Suffering.
Train Long Suffering.
No.
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, I think that's, the influences there sort of.
Subliminally, as opposed
Well,
to
I think that it's a broader kind of influence of sort of a gospel type of rollicking rhythm and blues
Okay,
kind of gospel influence.
Well, what he says about that, the whole album.
Call and answer type of song, but I don't.
Which is what shaped Presley. I mean, that's obviously was stronger to Elvis than rhythm and blues bass.
Yeah.
I think, anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, I've interviewed Sam Phillips about this. I've been in Memphis, done all that shit, to get to the bottom of Elvis. But he says that the album is a deep South concept album that begins with a mystical version of Elvis and Jesse Garon's birth and ends with the elegy to Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Well, it
Conceptually devised.
I think that it's easier for someone like that to stand back and look at something like that, and it's there in front of them and they can draw any sort of parallels to it. But for me, it was the way it happened for me was that I became. I'd always been a blues fan, but I became very much engrossed as a young person in the whole myth of the whole thing. I was Australian and
the myth of which? The South?
The myth of the
blues.
South and blues music and certain films and Southern Gothic literature and all this sort of stuff, all at the same time
like
I became...
Faulkner, all that stuff,
Yeah,
that whole
Faulkner,
area of
O'Connor
novels.
and-
Yeah. Why? What did that echo of Australia on your own geographical base?
I came to that from different areas through the writing, through Faulkner, particularly
Right.
when I was young, and this sort of developed and grew into other areas. I saw certain films that had a big influence on me, like Huston's Wise Blood from the
Right.
O'Connor
Yeah,
novel.
yeah.
I love this film. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have a bad memory for names, I'm afraid.
All right. Another movie it was.
Yeah, another the love-hate one, the Night of the Hunter.
yeah.
Sorry, things
yeah.
like that.
Who directed that? Oh, Charles Lawton.
Charles Lawton's
Yeah.
first
How about
person
stuff?
only film. I mean, there were a lot of secondary. I got this from a lot of secondary places. Whereas Elvis obviously got it at first hand. It came to me as and I never ever went into it feeling that I had the same authority to be writing about this sort of stuff than Elvis did, of course.
Okay.
And I accept that.
Right.
But I just became obsessed and infatuated with this particular mythology. And I thought that at the same time it was written by an Australian, kind of middle class Australian, white Australian, and in the end, and particularly with the novel that I wrote, I sort of invented this sort of bastardized sort of version of the South, which was completely uninformed actually, but my own private South, where I could set my characters in and stuff like that.
Right.
I became very sort of obsessed with that.
But I've seen the South defined in those terms for anybody from playwrights like Tennessee Williams, that the real South is just a construct, it doesn't exist. That the South is a state of kind of psychology being, you know what I mean? That even the people who live there see it in mythical terms. And if you've been to Memphis, that's how they view it. Even the name, the whole thing. Bono said the same thing to me about when he first went there. You don't see Memphis, you have just, there's so many mythical resonances.
Yeah, well,
that your perception is along those lines anyway, from Dublin, Australia, it doesn't matter. Well, or like Mystery Train, the movie. You know, I mean, isn't that's the reading of the South, of Memphis? And the
South?
I
guess so. You know, I mean, Bono's been in Memphis. I haven't even been there. Type of thing.
You've not been there. You've not been there. Jesus Christ! I assumed you had been. Maybe you shouldn't go there.
No, maybe I should.
So the album, but was it set out with as a cycle of songs to explore that myth of the South?
It was
from first to last.
I guess of all the records we made, I did go in there saying I want to make a kind of I want to make a I didn't go in there saying I wanted to make a blues record, but I wanted to go in and make a record that had a lot of references to that sort of thing, you know. And that was basically as much of a concept as there was, really.
And the song itself, Tupelo, which kind of Marcus says depicts the birth of Elvis and as Jesus. I mean, it doesn't sound like Jesus being born. It sounds more like the other side being born. You know, the dualistic. It sounds more dualistic.
You know, I just took a lot of the myths and threw them into the one song. You know, from borrowing heavily from John Lee Hooker's Tupelo, from the Great Flood of Tupelo, to the birth of Elvis. You know, in Tupelo.
But a parallel between the birth of Elvis and Jesus, obviously. I mean, there are those echoes. Whether you want to,
I think
whether it's for people like Marcus to stand back and say this is what I hear there, or you meant.
Well, I think that. A lot of that stuff was intentional, but how much of it was intentional, I'm not, I can't really recall.
Why would you be shy of drawing that parallel? Does it seem a little overblown now?
Well, it would do, yeah.
Okay.
I have to say, I at the time of doing that, I was much younger, and now I look back on that record and I sort of squirm slightly to feel that I had the gall to actually try and do that, and I think a lot of people pointed that out at the time of making the record, which I didn't really understand why black people, for example, had rights over blues music simply because they suffered for so long and all that sort of stuff. These days now I feel slightly. I find out,
that's true. That argument is true.
I don't find that it's true, but I do feel a sort of gnawing in my conscience there a little bit about that.
Yeah, but if Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all those people believed that, we wouldn't have rock and roll.
No, but I mean, they still they were there, type of thing,
Yeah.
And I mean, Blind Lemon Jefferson, for example, was that grew out of something else, a kind of extracurricular project that I was working on at the time, which was writing these short stories, fact fiction stories about people that I admired, or simply people who represented or were parts of myths that obsessed me or interested me. And so I picked up on Blind Lemon Jefferson, read a very short piece about his life, took out some key facts and wrote a short story about it, but it was completely fictional, but with certain key facts through his life.
Right.
I think there were certain characters, certain other blues musicians that were existed at the same time who feature in the story and stuff like that, and wrote this piece, like a short story about that, which I then condensed into a song, and you get this sort of strange song out of it. But, I mean, there was a lot of that sort of thing going on.
Does any of that hook into his suggestion that you were into the kind of hoodoo conjure that hangs around the South?
No.
The black arts and exploring that as part of the blues tradition, Robert Johnson?
Well, I mean, I liked. I was a big fan of Robert Johnson's.
But what does that mean going that far?
That's about as far as it went.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted?
Not really, no. I mean, I was, as I said, I was approaching this as a from a completely different point of view, really. I mean, I wasn't. I was simply not acquainted with the South when I was writing that sort of thing. You know, I wrote an entire novel that's, well, like I say, it's set in my own private sort of mythological South, which which is completely bogus in that all the sort of fauna and flora and all the animals and all that. I had no idea whether they existed there or not, but I just sort of went ahead and wrote this novel about it, which is quite great in that respect, in that it is completely uninformed. You know, it's talking about one of the